I recently came across an issue with the naming of files and the differences that exist between Windows and the Linux operating system. I created a file in Linux in my dual boot operating system computer, copied the file over to Windows successfully, no problem. But when I booted into Windows, Windows did not recognize the file. So the executive summary, or the TLDR, too long don't read version, is just this. You need to stay away from some specific characters when naming a file in Linux and then copying it over to the Windows partition of a dual boot computer. Let's get into some specifics. When you save a file in Linux, the safest way to do that in terms of the file name characters is to use lowercase a through z, uppercase a through z, the digits 0 through 9, a period, underscore, or hyphen. I've also tried, and these work, a semicolon, ampersand, plus sign, and hashtag. What will not work on Windows is the asterisk, which I think you recognize is the wildcard character, double quote, and that is one of the characters that caused me some difficulty. The / is used as the path delimiter in Linux. Backslash is the path delimiter in Windows. Windows will not recognize less than or greater than. Colon is another one, and that's one that gave me trouble also. The vertical bar, question mark, and up arrow. So if you can avoid those characters, you should be good in terms of Windows recognizing files created in Linux. Now, if you'd like to get into the additional specifics of what caused me the difficulty, stay tuned and we'll cover it right now. My primary desktop computer is set up as a dual boot with both Windows 11 and the Linux Mint operating system on it. When the system starts up, I'm presented with a menu, and I simply select whichever operating system I want to use for that particular session. In Windows, I can see the directory structure and all of the folders that are within it. Linux Mint is the same. I can go to the file system and see all of those folders. Now in Linux Mint, I also have the option of looking at the different devices on the computer. One of those is the Windows partition, and I can view all of the files in the Windows operating system at the same time. So Linux can view both its own directory structure and the Windows directory structure. Windows can only view its own. So in some cases, when I'm using Linux Mint, I need to have access to that particular file on the Windows partition. So let me show you how I do that. I've opened the file manager in Linux Mint. I've created a new folder called Documents 2. It's empty, and it's there just to reduce all the clutter of all the other stuff that I've got in my Documents folder. I've created some sample files that include different special characters. This one includes a hashtag or a number sign. This file has double quotes in it. This one has trailing blanks after the word blanks and before the file name extension. This one includes an ampersand. Next one has a plus sign. This has a semicolon. And the last one has a colon. Now, because we're going to be going into the Windows partition, I want to have a record of what these look like. So I did a screenshot. And now we can see all of those file names here and just see what transfers over to the Windows partition. I'll open the second panel, the extra pane, and we'll go over to Windows 11, and I'll bring up its Document 2 folder. So on the left-hand side, we've got the Linux Mint Documents to folder. On the right-hand side, we've got Documents to in the equivalent on Windows. So let's copy everything from Linux to Windows. Highlighted to select them all. Control-C to copy. Click the right-hand pane and Control-V to paste. So there we are. We've got the equivalent files on both sides. And if we try opening one, I mentioned that double quote was a problem. We'll simply display it. And that opened up and displays it just fine. I mentioned that colon also caused me some difficulty. That opens up just fine. So I'm going to reboot right now and get into Windows 11. In Windows 11, I've created that additional Documents to originally empty folder, and I've copied over all those files from Linux Mint. Here's our screenshot that shows the files that we created in Linux Mint. Confirmation with the hashtag is there. Sample in double quotes is not shown in Windows. Sample file with the trailing blanks is there. Sample with the plus sign is there. With the ampersand, it's there. With the semicolon, it's there. But sample RE colon does not appear on Windows. So is it really there or is it not there? Let's check. We can go to the Start menu and search for the command prompt. I'll blow this up a bit. I'm going to change directory to Documents to in double quotes. And I think you can see why double quotes in a file name is going to be a problem. Let's do a directory. List the contents of that Documents to folder. So here we can see that we actually did have that sample file .txt, sample in double quotes. It actually did make it, but when we list it in the File Explorer, it's not there. The other one is sample RE colon, which does not appear in the File Explorer. So just for kicks, let's try to delete sample RE colon more samples. DEL, you'll have to put this in double quotes. Highlight, Control-C to copy, Control-V to paste, and have the closing double quotes. The file name, directory name, or volume label syntax is incorrect. So Windows doesn't recognize the double quotes or the colon. Hypothetically, what if these were critical files? You'd save them from Linux Mint into Windows, and you've absolutely got to get them back. What do? They were created in Linux, so let's see if we can correct them in Linux. So I'm going to reboot, get back into Linux Mint. I've launched Linux Mint and the file manager and gone to the Windows 11 Documents to folder. If you recall, the sample with the double quotes around it was not recognized or readable in the Windows operating system. If we display it and look at it, everything is fine from the Linux side, but unfortunately, Windows can't handle that. So we're just going to right-click and say Rename, and we'll get rid of the double quotes on both sides. And with the colon, we're going to do the same thing. Press F2 this time as a shortcut for edit. Backspace to eliminate the colon, and saved it. It appears that when files are copied from Linux Mint to the Windows partition of a dual boot computer, Windows does not do a file name check. Now, I did try copying these same files from Linux Mint to a different Windows computer on my network, and I did get an error message. So apparently this is a condition that only occurs on a dual boot system. So as a final check, I'm going to reboot, get back into Windows, and we'll look for sample file.txt without the double quotes and sample RE without the colon, and see if those now appear in Windows. All right, we're back in Windows 11, and I've brought up a screenshot showing the original files that we copied over from Linux Mint. If you recall, we had sample and double quotes. We had sample RE colon with more samples. Those were the two that did not originally appear in the file manager in Windows. Now, sample file.txt does appear, and sample RE colon, once we got rid of the colon, that was just fine. So in the event that you accidentally name a file in Linux Mint that includes some invalid characters in Windows and save it to the Windows partition of a dual boot computer, all is not lost. You can simply use Linux to correct the file name and still have access to the contents. This is probably not a frequently encountered issue, but it's something that could cause you a lot of difficulty in the future, and I just want to pass it on. Thanks.